of Reese on the Radio. Whack FM.
All right, ladies, buckle up. It's showtime.
What's up, all you scallywags out there? You know what time it is. It's time for the world's most hated and most racist online show in America. It's Reese on the Radio. I feel like I'm in my own band. I got more news and more views than you can shake a stick at. All the news that's fit to spit. Right here, the world's most hated, most racist online show in America. It's Reese on the Radio. Thank you, as always, for joining us as you do every weeknight. We will not be here tomorrow. Just a programming note. We'll not be here tomorrow. I got a master plan. I'm on to Maryland. How did Biggie say it? I got a master plan. I'm in the caravan on my way to Maryland with my man 2 Techs to take over these projects. They call him 2 Techs. He told 2 Techs. And when he likes to bust, he likes to ask who's next. Yeah, I got to go to Ocean City tomorrow for a client. And I'm taking my road dog with me. You know who he is. One and only Carl. Road dog Carl is coming with me. As soon as I heard that this trip was 5 hours, I called him up on there. I said, yep, I'm calling Carl. We got to go to Maryland. And I looked at the address. Customer gave me the address. It said, this is the address in Ocean City. And I looked at the address and I went, holy crap, that's 5.5 hours. Where's Carl's ass? Hello, Carl? Yeah. What's going on, buddy? Hey, going to Maryland tomorrow. Be ready at 7 o'clock. Carl said, all right, no problem. I'm there. He knows the drill. He will not sleep. It'll be 7 o'clock in the morning. He will be up. He will have a hangover, but he will be up. And give him his proper due. Anyway, folks, today's show, the soft bigotry of low expectations. I thought about doing this today after I had a conversation last night and this morning with Keone, who called in the show yesterday, in case you missed it. And he got me thinking about this. And the interesting part about the conversation with Keone last night show, if you missed it, I'll break it down for you. It's real simple. Keone is not, I'm not going to say this isn't a critique of him. So I don't want to make it appear that I'm putting him down. Keone is not a political animal like I am. Okay, he's not, as most people are. They're not immersed in politics the way I am. I'm willing to, I know who I am. I am, I'm there. I am immersed in politics. It's my favorite thing to do. So whatever's going on politically, I'm really in it. I immerse myself in the political conversation. So Keone yesterday called because he never heard the adage that's promoted within liberal circles that photo IDs are racist. He'd never heard that before, understandably so. Me, in my naivete, was under the impression, wait a minute, how does he not know that? That's all they ever promote. And that's my fault. Because I'm always in the impression, no, you got to know that. That's what your people preach. Isn't that what you believe? And it was so wrong of me to do that. Because he genuinely never heard of it. Now, by the way, I'm not saying that because he and I had a talk this morning. He didn't even tell me to say this, or I needed to clarify that. I just realized it after I spoke to him last night and this morning. After reflecting on it, I went, wow, like, I can't assume that a lot of people know this. But he didn't. He wasn't familiar with it, which is understandable. So I was trying to express to him what that was all about. And the Army Horowitz piece that I played yesterday was, in essence, trying to explain to him liberalism, promoting the fact that black people cannot get IDs to vote. And they use this as a reason to change voting laws. It is their biggest argument to change voting laws. So Keone took issue with that because he says, yeah, we know that's not true. And I was like, well, you need to tell your constituents that. You need to tell people who vote with you, or that you need to tell the people who vote with you that, because it isn't true. And when you ask them, talk to some of the people you know who vote like you do and say, hey, what's this nonsense about black people can't get IDs? And then you'll hear from them, and then, of course, you could just tell them, all right, guys, knock it off. That's so stupid. Anyway, that being said, moving on. He and I had a conversation this morning, and he was really, in particular, upset with me because I kept using the word liberal last night. And I wouldn't just say white people or white liberals. He took issue with that. And my attitude about that was, I don't care if they're white. I care more that they're liberals. Them being white is just an added bonus, because I need black people to see that the true racists are Democrats. They're the party of slavery. They're the party of Jim Crow. Of course they are. You would think they'd make that association. They don't. When I say they, I mean black people. Keone had issue with that because he says, I'll say nigga, 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 nigga on this show ad nauseum.
Nigga, 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 nigga. Nonsense.
And he says, I won't call out whites, and I won't call them white cracker devils. And I laugh when I say it. It's because, again, I'm not trying to appeal to whites. I have no interest in trying to sway white ideology or white conservatives or white liberals. I have no interest in them. Whites are not my target audience. If you thought that I had a target audience, it's not. If you really want to know the real trade secret or the real honest to goodness truth, and I've never revealed this out loud, but my audience that I'm speaking to are blacks. I'm just not doing it in a way that is conventional for black people. I am not going to come on this show and do a People magazine version of the state of affairs in black America. Not going to do it. There are blacks who come onto this show, who listen to this show, who are very awestruck, if not offended or screaming and hollering, why he always putting down blacks? If there is good happening in the African American community, it needs no promotion. It's good. I am not here to talk about what's good about the black community. Go to BET for that. Go to any other outlet, the Griot, whatever that. Now go to NBC Black to go hear all the positive news you need to hear about blacks. There are plenty of outlets for that. I am here to talk about the issues plaguing black America and how ideology plays a role in that. How our voting record plays a role in our own demise. As a conservative black man, I am not here to speak in an echo chamber to white people who agree with me, although they do come to this show for just that. But no one is allowed, so making sure I say this again, no one in the black community is allowed to critique black people. No one is. If they were, we'd have this conversation far and wide. But there are no shows like this. You can say that people like Candace Owens do what I do, but you'd be wrong. I don't fuck with Candace Owens. I don't listen to her show. I don't read her blogs. I don't read her articles. I don't fuck with her. Larry Elder, too. I don't fuck with him either. Pardon my language, ladies. But I don't. I am not a black conservative who cares about what Ben Carson, had to say. I'm not sitting around here reading all of the briefs of Clarence Thomas. I don't care. There's only two black men who are conservatives who I really, really pay attention to, and that is Thomas Sowell and Shelby Steele. Those are two men that I respect in conservative circles. And C.L. Bryant. These are very few people that these are small, well, let's just say a very lightly popular conservatives or African American conservatives in the diaspora, if you will. I'm not here to get down with the popular folks, the ones who are always up in front of the camera getting down. I don't care about them. The conversations that I have are honest. Can they be a bit comical? Yes. Do I poke fun? Of course I do. The objective is to show the absurdity of it all. I'm here to point out how absurd some of this nonsense is. If you're getting angry, black people, about what I do, it's because something about what I'm saying is poking at you. That's needling at you. You can make all the comments about me you want, but you'll never come here to address what I poke fun at or what I needle. You can't. You're ill-equipped to. These things are foreign to you. You don't know what it's like, or you've never had to experience someone in your life that can take the absurdity of that nonsense and shove it into your face so you have to address it. So you'd sooner malign me, argue with me, call me all types of names instead of addressing what I'm talking about. I get that. But remember, I've been doing this for over 20 years. That's right, Carl, and have fun, because I'm having a blast when I do it. I'm not here to coddle you. I am not here to give you a participation trophy. I am here to tell you that me, a 10th grade dropout, can do and accomplish anything you want. That you could be anything you want to, as long as you are willing to work hard for it. And even if it's difficult, work harder. I'm not trying to inspire you. That ain't my goddamn job. Inspire yourself. And again, if I'm so wrong, that's where you come in and you argue with me about that, as Keone did yesterday. And again, let's applaud him for doing it. So today we address the soft bigotry of low expectations, and we'll do that today. And I've got a great piece that I'm going to share with you about that. Tomorrow, January 6th, it is the 1-year anniversary of the riot that happened at the Capitol building. People busting through windows, fighting with police officers, putting their feet up on Nancy Pelosi's desk. Yeah, all of that happened. Thank you, Rama. That's right. I'm not going to be a role model. And, you know, people are January 6th is supposed to be so important to the leftists. Listen to this reporter talking to Jen Psaki about Joe Biden's condemnation of Donald Trump. I've never seen more people in the press egging on the current president of the United States to condemn Donald Trump. And I'll explain what this is all about.
So the president, he's making remarks on Thursday, as you said, and he has often denounced the January 6 events. But could you talk a little bit about why he refrains, to the extent that he does, it seems, from condemning ex-President Trump personally, not just for January 6th, but for his ongoing campaign, which is very persistent, almost daily, maybe at least weekly, to discredit Americans' faith in the election process. So, in short, does President Biden think that his predecessor is acting normally, or does he think he's a threat to democracy, which is what some people would say?
Now, again, this journalist wants Jen Psaki to say that the president of the United States thinks that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. It's about a soundbite. It's not about whether or not he believes it, but he needs that to be said. He needs a condemnation of Trump coming from the highest office in the land, because that should be the headline. But have you ever seen a journalist come out and say that we need to condemn this? That he is constantly, Donald Trump for that matter, constantly, criticizing the transfer of power, the fair and equal. This guy's he's done nothing as far as investigate whether or not the election was fair. He just says that it is, and that's the end of it. And why haven't we done enough? Well, listen to Jen Psaki's response to that.
I have to say, I don't think we've held back on this front. I mean, President Trump's role in subverting our Constitution, attempting to block the peaceful transfer of power, and defending a mob that attacked our Capitol and law enforcement has been well documented. And it's something, obviously, the president spoke about in terms of that being one of the worst days in our democracy.
Was it, though? One of the worst days in our democracy? I'm going to go with burning down the White House. Was there a burning down of the White House, folks? Right? How about an attack on the Capitol? How about the bombing of the Capitol by the Weather Underground? These were not horrible times. The bombing of the Capitol by the Weather Underground. Right? I mean, that is a terrorist attack. Isn't it? Isn't it? And I just got word the other day. By the way, Ted Cruz, we're finished, dude. I just got over, and I cannot believe that, just to get off track for a second, I just got this. I've got to read this to you. And the person who sent it to me is somebody whom I respect, who would never, ever, he would never mislead me on this, but I almost lost it when I read it. Where is it? It's Gene Pinkham, our good friend Gene Pinkham, as I love to refer to him. He says, Ted Cruz called the January 6th a terrorist attack. Guess who just lost the Republican primary? Ted Cruz just called it a terrorist attack. The War of 1812. Wasn't that when the White House was burned? Yes, exactly. Okay, 1776, America was formed. The War of 1812, we burned down the White House. I would say that was a pretty horrible time in our democracy. I would say that. I would say congressmen, I apologize, being beaten on the congressional floor for their advocacy to abolish slavery. A congressman being attacked on the Senate floor, I was going to say, the Senate floor, bludgeoned to the point where he almost lost his life for condemning slavery in the United States. I would say that was pretty divisive. Okay? An attempted murder.
And he'll speak to, as I noted a little bit earlier, he'll speak to the historical significance of January 6th, what it means for the country 1 year later, the importance of the peaceful transfer of power, which obviously the prior administration and the prior president weren't a part of.
Yeah, burnt down the White House, but bombed the Capitol building.
But I think there's a larger message here to the country about who we are and who we need to be moving forward.
Does he consider ex-President Trump to be a threat to democracy?
Does he consider President Trump to be a threat to democracy? By having an opinion, dude? By having an opinion about the election? Why wasn't Hillary Clinton a threat to society or a threat to democracy when she said that the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump, was illegitimate? Why not? Why wasn't she considered a threat to democracy?
I think he's spoken to this in the past.
Okay, on the same issue but a little more broadly, the polls keep showing again and again that something like 70% of Trump voters think the election was rigged, that President Biden is not legitimate, and so on.
By the way, in 2017, that poll was only 8 points off for Democrats when Trump beat Hillary.
Is there anything that President Biden feels he should have already done, or is there anything he feels he still can do to actually talk directly to those people and try and get, people's reality to match a bit more in this country?
To get their realities to match. Anything that Joe Biden could do to say to those people to get their realities to match. They're living in a fantasy world. We need to have people have more reality. Could we get them to become more aligned? Can we indoctrinate them? Maybe put them in re-education camps.
I think what he's going to continue to do is speak to everyone in the country, those who didn't vote for him, those who may not believe he is the legitimate president, about what he wants to do to make their lives better. And he sees that as his responsibility as the president of the United States. That's what he will continue to do. Go ahead on.
Yeah, so they want so badly for Joe Biden. He's got to do more to condemn Donald Trump because it's a soundbite that they need. And that's what all that is about. Speaking of which, listen to this nonsense. This is, I can forget this broad's name, but her name is Yamiche Alcindor. She is supposed to be over at PBS, the Public Broadcasting System. Or service, right? Public Broadcasting Service, I apologize. PBS. Taxpayer funded, nonpartisan PBS. Yeah, right. But they're supposed to be nonpartisan over there. Listen to this woman talking about information. Now, I want you to hear this. This is published information about where people are going to be protesting to protest the election, right? The election of Joe Biden. People on the conservative side put their information in the public. And here's Nicole Wallace of NBC, a wannabe Republican, or claims to be a Republican. And Yamiche Alcindor talking about they couldn't believe that conservatives would put this out for everyone to see. But listen to the way they frame it. That means that these people weren't hiding that they were going to be protesting the election. They made it clear. There's nothing untoward about what they were doing.
The Bernie Kerik document dump, which included a strategic communications plan as part of the Giuliani legal defense team, and we all know how that worked out. That included protests at local officials' homes and offices, protests at governors' mansions, protests at lieutenant governors' homes, protests at Secretary of State's homes, protests at weak members' homes, protests in D.C., and a rally for key House and Senate members. It was put in writing, and that's what's so remarkable about the plan to overthrow the election of 2020.
The plan to overthrow the election through protest. Now, what's it called when people protest outside of a courthouse? When the trial of George Zimmerman's happening? Or the trial of the people who killed Ahmaud Arbery? Or the police officer who killed George Floyd? What are those protests called? An exhibit trying to overturn a verdict? to intimidate a jury? Is it called that? F no.
Put it all on paper. The whole intimidation, defrauding.
Now it's intimidation. This is the same network that was laughing and poking fun of BLM and Antifa protesters outside of Tucker Carlson's home, where he had a newborn baby at 3 a.m.
Corruption strategy was all on paper, in black and white.
Now listen,
it was
to
all
this.
on paper. It was all on Twitter.
It was all on Twitter. It was all on Twitter. Whoa, nefarious, sneaky. They posted it on Twitter. What a secretive place to put it.
Also looking and learning, as everyone is, about this one AP group, and they had a proposal to persuade the president to declare an emergency and seize the country's voting machines in a bid to stay in power. I have to read that because it sort of makes me shaky to even think about it.
Why would it make you shaky? That they were asking the president, they can say whatever it is they want, that they thought the president had the power to do that, or they felt the president had the power to do that. Just because they believed it, does it, you're shaky because somebody actually had a thought? It makes me shaky that they were actually going to do this. What? They were asking the president to do something he obviously couldn't do, but it makes you shaky that someone would think about it? How dare you? Thought crime! Thought crime!
Because how in the world are we sort of living through this moment where the GOP, frankly, has embraced this sort of this lie that just continues to metastasize, that continues to eat away at school boards, that continues to eat away at primary candidates, at Congress. I mean, it is remarkable to me when you look at GOP primary candidates in a lot of these different states that people can't even say that Joe Biden is president now for fear that they're going to offend the Trump supporters by stating an actual fact. So I think it's always been very interesting that how brazen the attempt to steal the election in 2020 was. I think the thing that's going to be interesting for the committee, and frankly,
and this, again, remember how the context she's putting this in, that the fact that these people wanted to protest is an attempt to steal it. They wanted to protest the results. Their constitutional right is not an effort to steal anything. They felt as though they were robbed. They wanted to protest that. That's not the definition of stealing. The protests that happened in 2000 in Bush v. Gore, were those things an attempt to steal the election from George W. Bush or from Al Gore for that matter? No.
For any lawmakers is how do you hold people accountable? And is there a way to hold people accountable?
How about 700 people behind bars? How about 700 people being charged with crimes for trespassing? I'd say that's holding people accountable, but how far do you want them to go there, Miss Alcindor?
And is there a way to even try at some point to really, I think, stave off what is becoming increasingly clear, a Republican Party that is going to be more focused on making sure that Republicans get elected by any means necessary?
Oh, I'm sorry. Republicans are more concerned that the GOP gets elected. What the? Oh, my God. Well, we need to round them up right now. How dare them wish to be in political office? This is a reporter for PBS. This is taxpayer-funded reporting. And she believes that the GOP wanting to be back in power is some sort of crime?
That is going to be more focused on making sure that Republicans get elected by any means necessary and not looking at sort of how can we as a society work together to have fair voting laws. I think.
Yeah, we need to work together so we can have fair voting laws so that Republicans never, ever get into office again. We'll give them a fair shot, but they never, ever get elected.
That is a thing that is, I think, at the center of this.
Now, wait. Now, Miss Alcindor, Yamiche Alcindor, she's about to say something that's demonstrably bullshit. This woman is a Democrat, liberal, activist. By no stretch of the imagination is she objective. But she expects you and I to believe this.
when I talk to Republican voters, they're very interested in just trying to find people who are loyal to the Trump brand, who are going to try to find a way to change the voting laws in this country to make sure that Republicans win rather than earning the vote. They're essentially trying to make sure that they can just ensure that they can install people. And that is the way that democracies die.
She's saying that Republicans told her that openly. That Republicans and Republican voters told her, no, we're trying to just steal elections. They told that to this woman who is on TV every day promoting the leftist agenda. That Republicans actually, you notice that she never mentioned one goddamn person. And she expects us to believe that nonsense. Get the F out of here, Alcindor. You're bugging. That's right, Amy. They still haven't accepted that Al Gore lost. These people freak me out. Anyway, we'll take a break. We'll be back. Stick around. It's the world's most hated and most racist online show in America. Yeah, Rama. Romney and Cheney supporters told her.
July 20th, 1969.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
In school, you were taught that Apollo 11 lost contact with the world for 2 minutes. Not true. They found something on that day that they kept hidden for 50 years. And now, it's too late to stop.
In breaking news, the governor has just ordered the mass evacuation of the entire West Coast.
Moving to higher ground is the only possible chance of surviving.
Stay awake, my brothers and sisters! Stay awake!
This planet has suffered 5 extinctions. This is going to be the 6th.
Are we dead?
No, we are just inside the moon.
That might be the greatest sentence anyone's ever said.
Hey now. I want to make sure that I thank our sponsors. Moonfall in theaters on February 4th. Halle Berry. I'm not really a big Halle Berry fan, but I do want to go see that movie. For those of you who don't know, Roland Emmerich is one of my favorite disaster film directors. I love his disaster films, and I know that they're all, climate change and all that other nonsense. But I love the way he blows up stuff. He's like the Michael Bay of disaster films. But Moonfall is one of those things that I have to see. So for those of you who are not familiar with him, Independence Day, probably his most successful film ever and probably most popular. Also did The Day After Tomorrow. And what was the other one? The Day After Tomorrow, and the other one, gosh, I can't think of it now. It just escaped me. There's another Roland Emmerich disaster film. I used to love that. I used to love the other one. Anyway. All right. But anyway, moving on. Folks, this is, let me see this. Is this what I think it is? New York City is going straight to 28 days later. I don't think that's him. Anyway, New York City is an awful place to live, folks. And being from there, I'm really disappointed at what's happening. Now, for those of you who think that Mayor de Blasio was the worst mayor in history, you might be right. He draws a close running with David Dinkins. But I have to say that what's about to happen in New York City is not going to make you want to visit there. Folks, the new district attorney is a guy by the name of Alvin Bragg, I think his name is. He's the new Manhattan district attorney. And he did an interview with Fox. I only got a piece of it, but this is what he's talking about. This was, I forget what this reporter's name is. I want to say it's Eric Stoltz or something like that from Fox News. But listen to this interview real quick.
These policies give criminals a green light.
No, I mean, it just depends upon your definition of criminal. I challenge anyone to suggest what's going on right now is working. We've laid out a path that is going to reduce incarceration, reduce violent crime, give people services, get neighborhoods safer, get New York City back up on its feet.
Okay, so he believes that his new policies are going to reduce crime, get America back on its feet. And he used that by saying, that depends on what you consider a criminal. Well, here, according to Alvin, is what he considers a misdemeanor today. Armed robbery is now a misdemeanor. Stealing from a store or a home is now a misdemeanor. Dealing drugs are now misdemeanors. Those are reduced charges. In other words, they are misdemeanors, right? If you think that that's bad, let's talk about what he doesn't consider a crime and he won't be prosecuting in New York City during his tenure. Trespassing will no longer be charged. Resisting arrest, no longer a charge. Prostitution, no longer a charge. And turnstile jumping to avoid a fare is no longer a charge. Now, listen to me. I'm not so particular about the turnstile jumping. Turnstile jumping, unfortunately, is a soft bigotry of low expectations. That's about young black kids, like it or not. But now that it's not going to be prosecuted, in other words, police officers will not grab you up if you commit that crime. Oh, I'm sorry, it's no longer a crime. If you commit that act, it is no longer a crime. Who's going to pay the fare now? Nobody. This is a service that is provided to New Yorkers where they pay a fare to pay for things like salary, cleanup, right? Maintenance, all of those things, right? It's supposed to turn over a profit because people pay for it. With less people having to pay a fare by jumping the turnstile, anybody could jump the turnstile. I would just take it off of my budget. If I'm an individual going to work every day, we're not prosecuting sure. Not prosecuting. What am I paying for? I'm not going to do it. Prostitution. Because now the sex industry That's fine. Because prostitution is a victimless crime, right? Or a victimless act, because it's no longer a crime, right? Pimps and hoes is okay, right? Pimp marginalizing, exploitation of women, no longer frowned upon. Okay, maybe it's frowned upon, but no more prosecuting of exploiting women. Resisting arrest. So that means if you actually do commit a crime and the police officer tries to grab you and you get away and they find you later, they cannot charge you for resisting arrest at the time. No longer prosecuting that. And trespassing. That's my favorite. Trespassing. We got over 700 people who were charged with trespassing at the Capitol building a year ago tomorrow. If you do it in New York City, what happens if you trespass at City Hall? Will you be charged with it? Apparently not. What if some people decide to insurrect City Hall in New York? Apparently, we'll no longer prosecute that crime. And the Manhattan DA will see fit that happens. But these misdemeanors, baby, armed robbery? You can threaten somebody with a weapon and it's only a misdemeanor? Stealing from somebody's home, which is trespassing, which is no longer prosecutable, I guess, for lack of a better word, and dealing drugs, which is the scourge of African American communities, right? Dealing drugs, where crimes happen all the time because of dealing drugs. Crimes that kill innocent children in shootouts and other events. That is now a misdemeanor. I guess it's just okay. No one is going to New York anymore. That's a wrap. It's over. The place is a failed state. They don't care about the people who live there. They don't care about the tourists who come there. The police officers have pretty much been hogtied. And this guy has the nerve to say the other stuff isn't working. He's right. The things that have been working under de Blasio's regime have not been working. Allowing people to defecate and urinate in the street, to smoke and use drugs in the street with no consequences. Yes, none of that is working. And this bozo just reduced that. He just lowered the bar. And he got in there as a black man and said, yeah, I'm going to get rid of the crimes, in essence, and he can like it or not, and you can like it or not. He just reduced the penalty, if you will, for crimes that plague the inner city. Dealing drugs, armed robbery. These things, these aren't affecting. I mean, have you been to Manhattan? This is the Manhattan DA. You've been to Manhattan? There are no armed robberies happening on the Upper West and the Upper East Side. These things are happening in Harlem. These things are happening in the Lower East Side, right? In Alphabet City. These things are not happening in Chelsea. They're just not. The new mayor, he can't do anything about it. The new mayor, Eric Adams, can't do anything about it. His police officers could bring all of these people downtown, bring them all into central booking, and they'll all go home. Because the prosecutor will send his ADAs down there and go, cut them loose. There's a new sheriff in town, and he's doing nothing. Armed robbery? I can't believe I'm witnessing this. But there they are. Anyway, on a lighthearted note, I don't like watching these stupid TikTok videos, but Roseanne loves to show them to me. In fact, as we speak, she just texted me one. Yep, there it is. TikTok video. But this one really, really made me laugh because if you've ever had kids, you'll appreciate. Or if you have a young child, Carl, you'll probably love this one.
Kayla Sullivan reporting live from outside my son's bedroom where he's currently being detained until nap time is over. Now, this story does involve a minor, so I can't release specifics, but what I can confirm is my son is a 2-year-old terrorist who held me hostage at the Olive Garden earlier today. It's important to note the friends I met there do not have children and likely never will after witnessing this situation firsthand. This is an active investigation, but authorities believe the proper precautions were taken. I brought my son's favorite snacks and even risked judgment from other moms by bringing an iPad. But not even Cocomelon could have stopped this meltdown. After several cries demanding, quote, "Ketchup, ketchup!" a Good Samaritan waitress miraculously understood it as the English word ketchup and brought him a bottle. Unfortunately, her good deed was later punished after he threw a ketchup-covered fork at her. Not all heroes wear capes, but this one should have worn an apron. You know, these toddler outbursts are becoming increasingly common as more and more parents try out the new craze, gentle parenting, and completely suck at it. I'll keep trying. Back to you.
I think got to be the most amazing TikTok that I've seen out of all of them. And I guess, I don't know what I find funnier. Her cadence as a news reporter, which by the way, is great. If she's not a news reporter, please hire her. But second, the fact that she used that rattle as her microphone, I think was brilliant. And she fixed herself up to look like a reporter. It's my favorite piece today. So Kayla Sullivan, congratulations to you because you beat, you met my criteria for funny and entertaining as far as TikTok videos go, because I am not a big fan. Hey, folks, before we get into our discussion about the soft bigotry and low expectations, did you know that Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2 black men? I didn't know that. I know that Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2 men, but I do not believe he killed 2 black men. In fact, we know for certain that he did not kill 2 black men at all. But apparently, this writer, whose name is Kara Cooney, and Kara Cooney, what does her profile say she is? Let me see if I can see this here. Kara Cooney is a Egyptologist and social historian. Apparently, she wrote some book called The Good Kings, which is available now. And she, I guess, is supposed to be some sort of historian, I guess, for lack of a better word. Well, Kara Cooney wrote a book about what happened in Kenosha. And she claims that before the book was edited, she made a mistake about describing whom Kyle Rittenhouse killed. Here is the passage. It says here, Kyle Rittenhouse, who used his semi-automatic weapon to kill 2 black men in Kenosha, Wisconsin. She wrote that. And she says, yes, this was my mistake and caught too late for printing. Apologies. I stand by the statement of white supremacy, however. Which Kyle Rittenhouse in no way is guilty of white supremacy in killing 2 men who were attacking him physically. But this woman is a book that comes out that will say that Kyle Rittenhouse is a white supremacist and killed 2 black men. Now, here's where I have my biggest issue. My biggest issue isn't about whether or not she made a mistake in a book. My biggest issue is that this woman, Kara Cooney, is a white supremacist. What, you say, Reese? Yes. This white lady is a white supremacist. Let me explain. What is the one thing white supremacists have done through time that needs to be, as I'd like to say, addressed in our society? And that is white people's supremacist dictation of our history. White people have decided that they can write our history or write history books. And they can determine what's in them because, to the winner go the spoils. They can doctor, alter the truth at any given moment. They can write their story, right? The whole argument in the black community. Yeah, that's not history. That's his story. That's not the real history. Well, Karakuni here is engaging in white supremacy by altering what took place, writing it in a book, and publishing it. This is a doctoring of American history, as only a white supremacist can do. There's nothing truthful in that statement. This woman just says, apologies, the book is out there. No one's pulled the book off the shelves. No one plans on pulling the book off the shelves. They are going to endorse this white supremacy nonsense that she gets to lie about in publication and gets to sell all over the place and just put out a tweet that says, my bad. But we're still going to sell the book. That's right. The publishers allowed that to go through. Someone needs to be fired. That's 100% right. And the worst part about it is that when she wrote this, she always knew that Kyle never killed black men. She 100% never. She knows he never killed black men. She knew the two men were white. She wrote that on purpose. That's not an error. That's not a typo. That is altering history. That is what supremacists do. My apologies. I stand by my sentiment of white supremacy. No, bitch. You stand by your white supremacy. That's all it is. You stand by your white supremacy. Because it shows how much of a supremacist you are by saying, fuck it, I'm putting the book out anyway. That line in that book alters the record. So what are you doing about it? Are you pulling the book off the shelf? No, you're allowing it to go through. Why? Because you don't think that you should be held accountable. It's probably because you're white and established. Bitch, check your privilege. Don't you know better? Try to explain this shit to people. I try. But that's the way it goes. The soft bigotry of low expectations before we get out of here, folks. I need you to watch this. This is very important. I'm going to read this exchange that's going to be established in here. But there's something to be said about the soft bigotry of low expectation. You cannot be a black conservative in America because your voice must be and will always be silenced. And Thomas Sowell had a book, was called Black Redneck, White Liberal, which is pretty much the feature of what you're about to watch. So please enjoy, and as I share this with you.
If you have a problem figuring out whether you're for me or Trump, and you ain't black.
I had to remind him that he was a black person, so he can't vote for Donald Trump, and that he shouldn't be influencing an entire swath of people who may listen to him because he's worried about his own personal pocketbook.
So Dr. Ben Carson, you may be familiar with him. He's an up-and-coming African-American in the Republican Party. Anyway, he's being taken to task tonight after making some controversial comments on Mark Levin's conservative radio show. Here it is.
You're attacked also in many respects because of your race, because you're not supposed to think like this and talk like this. A lot of white liberals just don't like it, do they?
Well, they're the most racist people there are because, they put you in a little category, a little box. You have to think this way. How could you dare come off the plantation?
From my standpoint, as a black American, as far as I'm concerned, it is a high-tech lynching for uppity blacks who in any way deign to think for themselves, to do for themselves, to have different ideas. And it is a message that unless you kowtow to an old order, this is what will happen to you. You will be lynched, destroyed, caricatured by a committee of the U.S. Senate rather than hung from a tree.
Booker T. Washington, his message, his story, his success, the generation that came out of slavery, their successes, that's an inconvenient truth for the political left. So yes, hide Booker T. Washington, hide all those blacks who were successful, hide all the success that took place before affirmative action. Just hide it. Pretend it didn't happen, and then you can believe that blacks are inferior and that only white people can save them.
Black people have never supported, for example, affirmative action, quotas, anything of that sort. Wherever polls have been taking a black opinion on such matters of should people be paid equally or should there be this or that, black people have never taken a position that you describe. So it is not a question of what black people chose to do. It's what you choose to put in the mouths of black people. It's what you choose to project. It is not what any black people have ever said anywhere that you can put your finger on.
Now listen, this white woman, what you're about to see from this white woman, look at her consternation for Thomas Sowell. She hates this. This is a white liberal. Shout out to Keone. She's a white liberal who hates that nigga talking to her and telling her that she is trying to speak for blacks, which she is. Look at the look on her face.
You should put into the mouth of the pollsters, as far as I can see. Look at the leadership of the black community.
Like most people, I have never seen a pollster.
If you look at the leadership of the black...
Intellectuals in the 1960s began promoting the idea that those blacks who exhibited a culture different from the ghetto or black redneck culture were not really authentic blacks. This issue was strikingly demonstrated in a controversy between Irving Howe and Ralph Ellison, growing out of Howe's 1963 article criticizing such black writers as Ellison, whom Howe considered insufficiently authentic or militant. For Howe, the central character in Richard Wright's novel, Native Son, a ghetto black epitomizing the black redneck culture, was authentic, and the more sophisticated central character in Ellison's novel, Invisible Man, was not. Ellison rejected and derided the idea of a white man defining what a black man should be and attempting to confine individual blacks to that stereotype. The notion that the ghetto black was the authentic black not only spread among both white and black intellectuals, it had social repercussions far beyond the intellectual community. Rooting black identity in a counterproductive culture not only reduced incentives to move beyond that culture, it cut off those within that culture from other blacks who had advanced beyond it, who might otherwise have been sources of examples, knowledge, and experience that could have been useful to those less fortunate. But more successful blacks were increasingly depicted as either irrelevant non-members of the black community or even as traitors to it. In turn, this meant that many blacks who had a wider cultural exposure and greater socioeconomic success felt a need to conform, to some degree or another, to a more narrow ghetto view of the world, perhaps using ghetto language in order to prove their identity with their own race. Such social pressures become especially acute for young blacks in the schools and colleges. One consequence of this has been that counterproductive attitudes toward education have filtered upward into black middle-class young people raised in racially integrated middle-class communities such as Shaker Heights, who spend less time on their studies than their white or Asian American classmates, under the overhanging threat of being accused of acting white if they devote themselves to their studies, instead of to various social activities in which other black students indulge. The painful irony is that those who make this accusation are themselves acting white when they perpetuate a redneck culture from a bygone era. Even such a modern ghetto creation as gangsta rap echoes the violence, arrogance, loose sexuality, and self-dramatization common for centuries in white redneck culture, and speaks in exaggerated cadences common in the oratory of rednecks in both the antebellum South and those parts of Britain from which their ancestors came. It is not only the cultural peculiarities of the black ghetto culture which has been perpetuated by the identity fetish developed in the post-1960s era. What has also been promoted has been a conformity of beliefs and affirmations among blacks, with those with different viewpoints being banished from consideration intellectually and ostracized socially, at least insofar as identity advocates succeed in imposing their straitjacket on others. Not only behavioral litmus tests, but ideological litmus tests have been used by those promoting a black identity fetish, with those who do not pass such litmus tests being dismissed as not really black. This post-1960s black identity intolerance, promoted by white intellectuals as well as black leaders and activists, is a painful parallel to the post-1830s intolerance among white Southerners against anyone who questioned slavery in any way.
There's a very, very key point in all of this. If you missed it, we used to have in the black universities, historically black colleges of all places, where this was persistent. We used to have what's called the brown paper bag test. Ask your black ancestors about them. They know, they all know. The brown paper bag test, where you had to hold up a brown paper bag, and if you were darker than said brown paper bag, you were excluded from certain black fraternities and sororities. You're too dark. Look up the Ebony magazine cover back in the late 1960s, early 70s. You will find a Ebony magazine cover, and I'll find it. I'll even bring it here on Friday. The magazine cover was a group of black women who were on the cover. They're all in individual boxes. And the headline, "When did black women become so attractive?" Every black woman in the Ebony magazine cover, not owned by whites, not published by whites, every woman in the magazine was a light-skinned black woman. These are instrumental in the soft bigotry of low expectations. Saying in order to be authentic, you had to adhere to a certain criteria. This is not just expressed within white liberal societies, but they have brainwashed blacks to believe it as well. That is what Thomas Sowell is talking about here when he talks about the relationship between this Ralph Ellison article. This Ralph Ellison article, this argument that was being made was that Native Son by Richard Wright was a proper and accurate depiction of black people. And Ellison's Invisible Man, that didn't fall into Mr. Howe's identity of what a black man should be, he ostracized it. White people set that standard. You ain't a real nigga. That's not authentically black. Using terms like acting white as a means to separate or to segregate blacks from each other. Telling them that education was a white man's game. That is not for the blacks. Blacks signed up. As I suggested many moons ago and many times on this show, in the African American community, we are still trying to sell education as a means to remove yourself from poverty. We're still selling it. The Asians have gotten it. Whites obviously have gotten it. Latinos are getting it. We still can't sell it to the black community. The African American community, as well as in America, but more so in the African American community, it is one of the only communities where we malign genius, where we ostracize things we call people, smart people, nerds, squares, right? Acting white, not authentically black. That's all over the black community. When we hear that a young black kid is going to college, but before he's supposed to, he's 15 and he's going up to college. We celebrate that shit when it's in the magazines or in the news. But what do we do when we see said kid in the street? We see that kid involved in his books, or he's carrying his science project, walking home in his inner city. Oh, you think you smart? You think that you intelligent? Were you trying to impress them white people? We know that it's a problem. People know that it's an issue that we see on a daily basis. It is the soft bigotry of low expectations. Black people are not supposed to succeed. They must and always shall remain a victim society, a permanent underclass. Reminders, the constant beating over the head about slavery. Slavery we never endured as black people today, never witnessed, never suffered from. Will constantly be a reminder that will keep us in our place, keep us from achieving, continuously blame others, will remove us from our accountability, will assuage white people for everything it is that they're done, everything that they've done as white people, to rid themselves of the guilt of being white and make it meaningless by saying, don't worry, sweetie. We know you can't pass that math class. We know you can't get an education. You're just not smart enough. So we're going to hand you everything like a special needs person. You're nothing more than a handicapped parking placard. That's what you are. In essence, you're handicapped based upon the color of your skin. You can't achieve. You can't excel. You're black. I'm sick of it. I've been sick of it. I'll continue to be sick of it until people recognize that nonsense is over. I'm not listening to it anymore, and nor should you. I don't want to be reminded of how oppressed I am, or I don't want to be reminded of a time that I can't possibly fathom. I couldn't imagine slavery. I couldn't imagine Jim Crow. I couldn't imagine the civil rights movement. I wasn't there. The people who endured it, they endured it so that I could prosper. Not so I can live in the past that they fought through. I owe them more than that. Because all of that bloodshed, all of that heartache and pain that they went through, for me to now be stagnant, for me to now sit idly by and say, I can't move, I can't breathe, I can't be, that means that everything that they fought for, everything that they died for did nothing. And I'm just asking, is that the legacy you want to leave to the next generation? That what they did was for naught? Their blood was spilled for nothing? I'm not down with that. Ever. So you go on and have your pity party. Just don't send me a fucking invitation. As I always say, radio is free, so we thank you for paying attention. Remember to keep JC in your hearts and in your minds. Sean Patrick, we love you and we miss you. Remember that panic is not planted, so plan your work and work your plan. I'm Reese on the Radio. Have a good night and a pleasant tomorrow. I won't be back here tomorrow, but I'll be back here on Friday, and I hope you will too. Take care of each other and be good to yourself. Holla!